So for the people that support us, I want to say support Young Thug, support YSL, support Gunna. Write them guys, make sure you hit the officials, the governments, whoever's in control in your town, and fight for people like us that fight for you guys, black art, protect black art, because now they're using our lyrics against us.
As you all probably know, Thug and almost the entirety of YSL are locked up in Atlanta prisons after being hit with a staggering 88-page indictment containing 56 charges. Since then, the dude's been fighting for his life in prison. At least that's how he sees it. He recently put out a video of himself freestyling over the phone and begs God to give him a second chance to do what's right. It's kind of difficult to watch knowing what Thug's going through, but at the same time, it's not like Thug hasn't affected a lot of lives in a negative way. On the flip side, he's always been extremely giving to his community. It's a complicated situation, but with that, let's go ahead and get into it. Young Thug has also been asking Judge to rethink his decision, so how did the judge react to it? There's been a long debate in the rap game about whether or not Thug is actually out here in the streets. If you actually look into what's up, you'll learn pretty quickly that he has a bit of a reputation. I'm not saying anything specifically about whether or not he's guilty, because that's not for me to decide. That being said, the court definitely seems to think so. YSL, which stands for Young Stoner Life, is described by Thug as just a collective of musicians that's intended to give young black people a better chance at life through their art. That being said, findings in the indictment dispute that whole narrative and claim instead that YSL is a street gang at war with another set of Atlanta Bloods known as YFN. Now, the whole thing started with the passing away of Donovan Thomas in Atlanta's Castleberry Hill neighborhood. Thomas was known in the streets to be a huge blood and was active near Cleveland Avenue as a part of what would later become the YFN gang. Thomas went by the name of Big Nut, and he also was the guy who introduced YFN Lucci to Fly, a manager who helped put other rappers on. Some of the rappers Fly had worked with were Rich Homie Quan and Trinidad James. If you ever wondering why you didn't really hear Trinidad James on Young Thug tracks after a while, this is exactly why. The whole thing set off a brand new explosion of activity in the Atlanta area, with both crews trading bodies back and forth for years. It got so bad that the DA for Fulton County claimed that the whole thing led to about 75 to 80% of the crime in the city of Atlanta. That being said, she also has a permanent personal vendetta against gangs in Atlanta, considering some of her own family has been impacted by it. When the indictment finally dropped, the internet was absolutely floored by the sheer size of the indictment. It's not exactly that the people didn't know that these kind of RICO charges could happen or anything like that. It's just that it usually didn't happen on this kind of a massive scale, really. First of all, the number of charges in the indictment was insane, but then there's the fact that they were actually going after someone like Young Thug or Gunna. Before all this, someone that big was thought to be untouchable. You might have had someone like 6ix9ine go get some RICO charges, but never like a mainstream radio artist like Thug. Funny enough, just a year before everything happened, YFN Lucci was actually indicted on a set of RICO charges on his own. This brings us to the next section of the story. It's alleged through the court documents that some of the inmates had access to a phone while they were in prison, and somehow the feds managed to tap it. They figured out that Young Thug was essentially directing other YSL members to target YFN Lucci. Of course, the people carrying out were lower level gang members, but that doesn't mean Young Thug isn't going to get off completely free for the whole thing. It's probably a good time to explain the way RICO charges work. First of all, there's a bit of a weird loophole going on with them. They were introduced back in the 70s as a way to take down the mafia at a time when most people thought they were untouchable. Essentially, they made it so you could be convicted of a crime without actually having committed the crime yourself. That means, like in the case of Young Thug, you let a friend borrow your car knowing that they were going to use the said car to commit a crime. You can get arrested for the crime they committed. Now imagine that on a grander scale. The narrative that the police are running is that Thug is actually the kingpin of the vast empire, using different intimidation tactics to scare rivals out of their territory. He'll get their bags and run the streets by any means necessary. It doesn't help Thug at all. And when investigators went down to his house on a warrant, they found a few things that would bolster this narrative. They found a number of like Call of Duty kind of stuff, along with illegal enhancements like scopes and lasers, in addition to a bunch of product packaged up for distribution on the streets. Of course, that did nothing to help his case. It was shortly after all this that Young Thug's attorney filed a document to try and get Thug released from prison, at least for the time being out on bail. The judge pretty much immediately denied the motion, stating that Thug was a flight risk. Not only that, but the judge also claimed that he would be in danger to potential witnesses, threatening or bribing them to sway them when it came time time to testify about the case. Gunna also tried to get out on bail, but the judge also denied him, worrying that it would have the same result as a potential Thug release. The document that Young Thug's lawyer released makes sense from the perspective that an attorney is going to follow his client's wishes. At the same time, though, it's jail. It's not supposed to be fun. The document alleges that Young Thug is being held in dungeon-like conditions. That may or may not be true. I mean, he's in a jail cell. Don't get me wrong, like, jail sucks, especially American jails in comparison to the rest of the developed countries in the world. But that being said, it's still a jail. Jails in the US are set up for punishment and rehabilitation. I get that this isn't the way Thug is used to living, but it's kind of how all prisoners live, man. Another important part of this whole thing is that these are the kinds of things that happen. You go to prison when and if you get caught, and the fact that you're a huge rapper doesn't protect you from that. This happens to tons and tons of people who get mixed up in the gang lifestyle. I'm not passing any judgment on them. It just is what it is. There's something going on here that's bigger than Thug, though, and the whole situation opens up a lot of debate. See, recently he put out a big message at Summer Jam. Initially, he was supposed to perform at the festival with Gunna, but unfortunately, both of them are in jail right now, which definitely throws a wrench in the plans. Instead, he appears on a giant screen in a photo with subtitles. Subtitles read, while the sentiment that Thug is trying to explain is valid, there's a few issues with what he's saying here. Black art, black music, and black lives should be protected. The issue is that he's flipping the script. This whole thing isn't about black art. It's about a black artist who has potentially ruined lives of black families in his community through gang activity. I know that's blunt, but that's what's up. It's true that some of the court proceedings have featured the use of Thug's lyrics, but at the same time, it's not like that's their sole evidence. That would be a whole different issue. There are artists who make a whole career off of pretending that they're horror movie villains in the music. People like Isham, Insane Clown Posse, and even a lot of the early music of OFWGKTA, better known as Odd Future Wolfgang Killed Them All, aka Odd Future. I mean, they featured a lot of pretty rough lyrics. You look at the whole history of Memphis hip-hop and that becomes immediately clear. But those people are in the clear because they aren't connected to charges directly being confessed to in their raps. That's the issue. Art is art, and it should be protected, but this is bigger than that. Thug also released a video of him rapping, and he obviously gets way into his feelings in his bars. He raps,
"I'm just sitting here in my cell like, damn, I'm really in jail. God, give me another chance to show you I can prevail. I can put my arm from wall to wall inside this tiny ass cell. Yeah, I tried to cry, but ain't nothing left. Yeah, I contemplated doing myself, nigga. Yeah, the most suicide deaths are in this jail, but let's not forget that this ain't hell."
And I guess that's really all he can do at this point to make himself feel better. This isn't hell, and it could always be worse. A lot of people on Twitter have been reacting to the freestyle, calling out Thug for writing a verse before it was recorded. Others stood behind Thug in support. One user said he wrote that, which is not a freestyle. All the time he has in that cell, it must feel like hell. I mean, the man can't get out, he can't post bail. Lord, please save him. Wayne is who we want to be, but unlike 6ix9ine, Thugger won't be free. That's off top. I don't claim to be a rapper. Another user called out everyone else in the thread saying, y'all need to go outside and touch grass because that man responsible for 50 bodies and y'all want him free because of speakerphone freestyle. Thug is likely to beg both God and the judge to let him out and give him a second chance at this whole thing. But that being said, that might only do him so much good. Thug's formal trial is set for January 2023, but who knows if he'll actually get out before then. Aside from that, January 2023, pretty far out from now. My heart goes out to Thug for having to deal with this prison time, and the same it does to anyone else who's faced this situation. But what do y'all think though? Should this be a discussion about lyrics and the music of rappers convicted, or is that just a way to shift the attention away from what Thug was accused of? Does he actually have a shot at making it out of this whole thing with his freedom? Let me know what y'all think down below in the comments, and don't forget to keep it RIZZLE. And of course, if you like this video, you should definitely make sure to peep this one next.